Here we are with my old friend, colleague, and Hall of Famer Steve Flink, who must be very, very surprised about the fact that Novak Djokovic won the Australian Open. I'm sure you didn't expect.
No, nobody expected. No, I want to say this, Ubaldo. I get your point, and obviously he was all along was the overwhelming favorite to come back and win the Australian Open for the 10th time. However, I honestly believe that he was genuinely very worried about his leg. Some people didn't want to believe that. I definitely believed it because he got hurt in Adelaide, and then you saw he was canceling practice sessions in the middle of the leading up to the Australian Open. He was worried, and then he kept wearing that strapping on his leg. Plus, there were those medical timeouts he was taking in the early rounds, and I don't think it was until he played de Minaur in the 4th round that he was physically close to his best. And then from that point on, he looked pretty invincible. But I do think coming in, Ubaldo, he had deep concerns about his physical condition.
Yeah. Well, I do agree. And then when he said at the end of the tournament that this was had been the most difficult slam he won, okay, maybe he was under the influence of having just won, so everyone remembers better the last win than the previous ones. But it's true that probably he didn't know if he was welcome to come back to Australia after last year. He didn't know about his injury. He was for sure annoyed by what happened to his father and all the media coverage that came out of it. So I do believe that he was completely sincere and honest in saying that this had been the most difficult slam, even if he lost 6 games with de Minaur, 7 games with Rublev. I don't know, 7 or more games with Paul. I mean, he could have won with Paul much easier than 7-5, 6-1, 6-2. He could have won 6-1, 6-1, 6-2. So, as you said, after the first week, then his physical condition was okay.
Yeah, I think he felt much better because he said after he beat de Minaur that was the first time he was thinking that he could really win the tournament. Until then, he was not optimistic at all, and I think he meant it. But then once he played that match, which was a pretty almost impeccable display, then the rest of the way he was almost perfect. And yes, you're right about the Tommy Paul semifinal. Djokovic was 5-1, 40-30, about to win the set 6-1, and the next thing you know, it's 5 games all. But still, from there, 14 out of 17 games to close it out. So even then, it didn't get out of hand. I thought he played to a very high level the entire tournament. And you look back at what he's done since Wimbledon last year. Just lost a couple of matches. He's won 6 tournaments. And in the 6 tournaments, starting with Wimbledon, he has Wimbledon, ATP Finals, and Australian Open as 3 of the 6 titles.
Yeah, and then he lost only 1 match after Roland Garros. No, he lost in Bercy versus Rune and nobody else.
Yeah, and he did lose to Felix FAA in the Labour Cup, but I don't put as much importance on that. But just imagine how far ahead he would be in the rankings, Ubaldo. He took over number 1. If he'd had 2,000 points for Wimbledon, as he should have received, he'd be way, way ahead of the pack. But he's still, just the fact that he got back to number 1, which nobody was really expecting last fall, is a great achievement.
Yeah. Anyway, the only thing is, he's almost 36. He will be 36 in May. Yeah. And when he's not injured, I mean, he runs like a rabbit. Or a fox, or I don't know what you want to ask, what animal you want to speak. But it's almost unbelievable because, I mean, if you compare him with the physical condition of Nadal, there is no comparison.
No, there's not. Well, yes, he's so professional about it all, Ubaldo. He doesn't leave any stone unturned. He trains hard. He has his physio. And then even in the course of this tournament, the professionalism he showed, because on his days off, he was talking about going on machines to improve his leg. He wouldn't practice because he knew it was more important to get the leg back in shape. So he did everything he could to make sure that improved. I think he's got a couple more very big years left, don't you? I think up till 38.
Yeah, Steve, I do think so too. And at the same time, I am a little worried about the fact that there is still such a big gap between him and all the others, because even if you consider Tsitsipas, the best player of those one who are behind him, or Alcaraz, we don't know yet how he will react to this long season without playing. I'm wonder if really all the other players are second-class players or not. Are they? The gap seems to be huge. I mean, okay, Tsitsipas didn't win a set. He had a chance to, when he at the only break point in the second set, 5-4, to perhaps make the set. But until then, he had never made any problem to real problem to Djokovic.
Yes, I see your point. Just a couple of things related to what you're saying, Ubaldo. Number one, I think Carlos will be the main rival for Novak. I think when Carlos gets going again and comes back, Alcaraz, that could be a nice rivalry this year. And I think they could have some really hard-fought, close confrontations. And he may be the main rival. Tsitsipas is improving, and obviously he'd never been in the finals here before. It's his second Grand Slam final. I don't want to be too critical of him because in the whole match, he lost his serve twice to the best returner maybe of all time. And so I think it was a pretty high quality performance. And as you said, he had that break point, which was a set point in the second set. He didn't play a bad point, but Djokovic ended it with a forehand inside-in winner. Maybe Tsitsipas was hoping Novak would miss, but I don't think he played a terrible point. And then Djokovic won that in a tiebreak and won the third in a tiebreaker.
Yeah, so but Steve, sorry if I interrupt you. In that tiebreak, Tsitsipas made 4 unforced error with the forehand, which is usually his best throat.
Yeah, he did. I agree. Oh no, I agree. He was a little nervous there, but Djokovic also. You balance it by saying Djokovic was 4-1 with 2 mini breaks, serving at 4-1, and he got nervous to let Tsitsipas back. But when it got to, he hit a backhand unforced error and then a double fault. But then Djokovic from 4-all, you sense that he said to himself, "I'm not missing anymore. I will not miss another ball," and he didn't. And he out-rallied him a couple of times, and then a good serve wide to the forehand, and suddenly 3 points in a row for Djokovic, and he wins the tiebreak 7-4. And interestingly, Ubaldo, they had the early exchange of breaks at the start of the third when Tsitsipas had his only service break against Novak in the first game of the third. Djokovic got it right back. And then they went to another tiebreak, and Djokovic had the big lead again. And he was a little unlucky, Ubaldo, I thought, because at 5-love in the tiebreak, 5-0, a fan screamed out just before Djokovic hit that backhand. And it clearly distracted him. He turned around and looked at him like, "What are you doing?" And then the tiebreak got a lot closer after that. And Tsitsipas made it 5-3. Djokovic went to 6-3. And then Tsitsipas saved 2 match points before Novak closed it out on his serve. So those were tense tiebreaks. But as usual, when the crucial moments come, as the British would say, he's not found wanting. Djokovic rises to the occasion when in the pressure moments.
Well, consider that Djokovic made 20 points in a row on his serve, and then only in the tiebreaker he lost 1 point, a mini break, and then so he made 21 points out of the last 22 when he served, which shows in a way that, okay, you said that Tsitsipas lost only twice his serve, but he was practically unable to win the Djokovic serve, apart from those two moments. The early break in the third, the early break in the third set, and when he went up 5-4 on 5-4 to set points. But the rest of the match, he was completely unable to play on Djokovic serves in first set.
Yes, but Ubaldo, I hear what you're saying, but listen, in the entire tournament, Djokovic lost his serve 6 times. Nobody was having an easy time dealing with his serve. I think it's the most improved part of his game, along with the forehand, and I think he locates it so well, and he backs it up so well. Look at the first set. In the first set, he won 20 of 25 points on his serve, so that was very similar to the end. Only 5 points in 5 service games. And yes, you can blame Tsitsipas to a degree for not winning more points, but I think a lot of it is the credit must go to Djokovic for the placement, the precision of that serve, and he's added a little bit of velocity to it too.
Yeah,
I think it's now the most underrated part of his game, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, now that everyone seems to understand, all players are saying, look, you don't know how well he's capable to serve Novak Djokovic. But what I was pointing out at the beginning of our speech about this final is that I didn't see so much difference between Tsitsipas and the other opponents who played the Djokovic, and were also all of them unable to break him, or to create really several problems to Djokovic's serve. And so that's why I started saying, look, this gap seems to be big between Djokovic and all the others, included Tsitsipas. Okay, Tsitsipas has proved to be the best of all the others, but still quite far. This is what I'm saying.
Yeah, fair point. I think the smallest gap is between Djokovic and Alcaraz. I think we'll find that out. That's what we need to see this year, Ubaldo, is Alcaraz pick up where he left off last year, winning his first major, finishing the year #1, has the temperament, has the game. I want to see Djokovic and Alcaraz play this year. I hope maybe 4 times, 3-4 times at least. And I think that could be great for the game. And that may be the biggest test for Novak, would be to play the young Alcaraz, who's so fearless.
Yeah, you're probably right. I probably agree. At the same time, in the back of my mind, there is the fact that Alcaraz has lost twice to Jannik Sinner, and also in the quarters of finals of the US Open that Alcaraz won it. In the quarters of finals, Sinner had a match point.
So, yes, he did.
So, which in a way shows me that, okay, Alcaraz, as you say, is probably the biggest future opponent of Djokovic, but he still has quite a few up and downs, because not only lost twice to Sinner, and he was close to lose the third time, but he lost to Musetti in the final in Hamburgo, and he lost to Berrettini also in another tournament. So I don't want to sound chauvinist. I don't want to sound chauvinist, but these 3 players all gave problems to Alcaraz.
Yes, you're not sounding chauvinistic. You're sounding or patriotic, well, whatever we want to call it. But it surprises me. You must give your own Italian players some credit here. I thought you'd be bragging about them. No, but you have a good point. But I think he's going to improve a lot probably over the next few years. This year might be a little tricky for Alcaraz, because he's trying to protect what he did last year, live up to his reputation. So there may be some difficulties with that. Another thing we should talk about is Medvedev, Ubaldo. Medvedev spoiled the Grand Slam for Djokovic in 2021. Novak was 3 sets away from winning the Grand Slam. and Medvedev beat him in straight sets in the final. And there were, maybe we can look at the reasons. Djokovic was nervous and mentally exhausted. Medvedev played a great match. Then Medvedev goes to Australia last year and has 2 sets to love, 3-2, love 40 on Rafa, and doesn't close out the match. He loses in 5. I don't think he's been the same player since. So we have to wonder what's going to happen with Medvedev. Is he going to be back in the forefront of the game or not? Because he seemed like he was going to be a consistent top 2, top 3 player. And right now, that's not where he is.
Yeah. He's the biggest disappointment of this. I would say of the year 2022 and the beginning of this year, because as you said, Medvedev seems to have a better potential than, for instance, his friend Rublev. Rublev is a player that is good when he's capable to take the initiative to attack, but is not great in defense and is not great in the topic moments. And the fact that Rublev never went over the quarters of finals in any slam shows it. So Ruud, in my opinion, I don't know what you think, you will tell me, it's a player who knows to do a little bit of everything, but nothing extraordinary. I mean, to think that Ruud could have been number 1 in the world, for me, was quite shocking. I have nothing against him because he's a wonderful guy, a very nice man, very polite. But when I see him playing, I never get excited.
You know, I'm not going to disagree. I do think he has a very good forehand, Ubaldo, and his backhand's improved. He's a good disposition on the court, good temperament, and he's a smart player. But it does surprise me looking back that we saw him in the finals of the French against Rafa. We saw him in the I didn't think he could do the finals of the U.S. Open, was even more surprising to me. And then the finals of the ATP Championships at the year end, and you were there for that. And obviously, Djokovic beat him comfortably in the final, but those were 3 big showings from him. I don't see that for him this year. I'd be surprised if we saw him back in any of these finals this year, and maybe his ranking may drop to more. I think he's going to be somewhere between 7 and 10 in the world this year, and not in the latter stages of majors. I have to agree with you, and I believe, like you do, that he's a good guy and a top of the line professional, but there doesn't seem to be anything that extraordinary in his tennis.
Yeah, while I am, let's say, more optimistic on the future of Felix Auger-Aliassime, because he seems to be more complete in a way, and I saw him winning in fall few tournaments, included the one he played in my town in Florence, and well, I saw him playing very well against Djokovic in Rome at the Italian Open, even if he lost. So he showed that he can be a complete player on all different surfaces.
Yes, but Ubaldo, I totally agree, and I think he has everything. He has all of the weapons, all of the tools. He's a great athlete. He has a good temperament. He wants to be the best in the world. But once again, another disappointing loss in Australia. It's inexplicable to me, some of the losses he suffers given his ability. I'd want to see a little more consistency. He won those 3 tournaments at the end of last year. You know, he had a nice run that played his best tennis of his career last autumn. And I would have expected him to do much better in Australia. But weren't you anticipating more than that?
Yeah. Well, I of course I had seen Lehechka playing the final at the next gen ATP finals in Milan.
Yes.
And but he was twice beaten quite severely by Brandon Nakashima, and but still he's a good young player. He's 21 years old, and he won versus Aliassime the 2 final tiebreakers. One 7 points to 2, the other one 7 points to 3.
Well, that's what I mean. That's where Felix should be demonstrating that he's the better big point player. That's where you separate the great players from the good. And you know, it's a one set all, and he loses the match in 4 sets by losing 2 tiebreakers in a row to a player that's not as good as he is. That's what I found disappointing. Felix should not lose that match.
Listen, tell me, what do you think about three subjects that you have to be very synthetical? One is Holger Rune. The other one is your Sebi Korda. And the third is the good moments of the American tennis.
Yeah, all right. Well, let me start with Holger Rune.
Yeah.
He did get hurt. I don't know how serious he was injured. He was having some physical problems when he played Rublev. However, he led 5-2 in the 5th set. Then he had 2 match points with Rublev serving at 5-6. Then he had won the first 5 points of that last set tiebreaker, and he lost the match. That I thought was a little disappointing. It would have been fun to watch him play Djokovic because of what you referred to earlier, where he beat Djokovic in the finals indoors at Paris-Bercy last fall. So, but I'm still encouraged about him, Ubaldo. There's something about the way he conducts himself, and he has great inner confidence, and his all-around ability is remarkable. That was a tough loss for him. It was a match he should have won, and it got away from him. Having said that, I think we're going to see him finish the year in the top 5 in the world. Now, Korda. Your next question is Korda. He had a great tournament, Ubaldo. He beat Medvedev in straight sets. 2 of the sets were tie breaks. Very, very impressive performance. And this is coming off being in the final of Adelaide, where he had match point against Djokovic. So then he also beat Hurkacz in a very pendulum swinging match. Crazy final set tiebreak. He's up. You know, he was down 3-1. He was up 7-3. Then it was 7-all, and he won it 10-7. But that showed a lot of composure, that he withstood the ups and downs of the tiebreak and beat a player as experienced as Hurkacz. So he beat 2, you know, those are 2 higher seeds that he knocks off, 2 top 10 seeds. And then he got hurt in the middle of the match against Khachanov. He should beat him, in my view. He lost him at Wimbledon a couple of years ago. He's beaten him twice since, and there was a chance for him to be in the semifinals here and play Tsitsipas. Nevertheless, he was in the quarters. It's the first time we've seen that at a major from Korda. It's a great start to the year to be in the finals of Adelaide and the quarters of the Australian Open. So I'm expecting him to finish the year certainly in the top 20. Maybe I would hope he would finish the year maybe in the bottom of the top 10. I think he's that good of a player. And the final question, American tennis. Well, Ubaldo, we finally have something to brag about, because this is the best group we've had really since, I think you have to go back. I mean, we can look at the Roddick, Blake, Fish era. And yes, I mean, Roddick was the last American man to win a major singles title at the 2003 U.S. Open. And Blake was in the top 5 in the world, and Fish had some great exploits. But this group there's more depth. This is more like the mid-90s. I'm not saying we're going to have a Sampras, Courier, Chang, Agassi, you know, the greatest American generation. But all of these guys, starting with Fritz and Tiafoe, and then Korda, who we mentioned, and Tommy Paul, his first major semifinals. So despite the fact that he lost to Djokovic in straight sets, Tommy Paul made a burst into the top 20 himself. We've got an awful lot of talent there in the top 50 now, and I haven't been this encouraged in a long time. I think it's a very impressive American lineup.
All right. Then listen, I ask you only the last question before we pass to women. We were not very gentlemen to talk first about men, but maybe we are old. We're getting older, you know. And what do you think about the 3 Italian guys, Sinner, Berrettini, and Musetti? What is your opinion? Who has the best potential, and who will be in a better position at the end of 2023? In your opinion?
I would think it would be Sinner, Ubaldo. I think he's been an underachiever so far. You just made the comment about him against Alcaraz, having beaten Alcaraz a couple of times, including at Wimbledon last year. And then he loses the heartbreaker at the U.S. Open, one of the best played matches of the entire year, where he had the match point, as you said. I believe he will surpass Berrettini slightly, but I'm not going to underestimate Berrettini, who I think is, his backhand is never going to be great, but the more that if he can just make little refinements and improve it slightly, and he keeps working on it, we know what a great serve and forehand he has. So if he stays healthy, which, by the way, is a problem for Korda too. They've got to avoid the injuries. Korda getting hurt again with the wrist at the Australian Open. That's my biggest concern about him. And it's a concern I have about Berrettini. But I think Sinner, I expect to see him. He lost to Tsitsipas in 5 sets. He was down 2 sets to love and got it into a 5th. That was a match he could have won. And he's losing too many of the close, hard-fought matches, but not because he isn't giving it his all, and not because he's not a great professional. One of these days, he's going to have a big win over the course of the next few months. And I would say he finishes the year slightly above Berrettini, and both of them in the top 10. And Musetti, I see a notch below. In a way, I think he overachieves. Sinner's an underachiever. Musetti maybe overachieves in my view, but I give him a lot of credit. He's made some improvements, and you have Sonego as well, but not quite on the same level. So Italian tennis is in pretty good shape right now too. What are your thoughts, Ubaldo? Berrettini versus Sinner, what's your call on that?
Well, I also think that probably Sinner seems to be more solid in a way, even if last year he was always injured. And if you count the percentage of the matches that he played and the matches that he won, he would be placed like number 5 or 6 in the world.
Yes.
But of course he played so I think he played less than 12 tournaments, while all the others are playing 28, 25, 24. So in terms of points, of course, he's paying an high price. But when he played, he always performed pretty well, even if, last year he had quarters in practically, he has now already the quarters in all the in 4 slams. So, I mean, but this year he lost in the last 16 because of his ranking. Since his ranking didn't allow him to be in the top 8, then he must play against one of the top 4 too early. I mean,
but Ubaldo, I do think what's encouraging to me about Sinner and Berrettini, I believe that they're both great on all surfaces. They can play on anything. I mean, we've seen Berrettini in the finals of Wimbledon. Sinner is terrific on clay. We've seen him, how well he's played at Roland Garros. I think he's shown he can play on the grass as well, and obviously on hard courts. So they're a threat anywhere they go at the majors all year long. I think they push each other too, Ubaldo. I don't know. You know better than I do. I assume they get along well, but I think it'll be a healthy rivalry between Sinner and Berrettini.
Yeah, probably there is. Let's say that, in my opinion, maybe one of the problems of Berrettini is that he is too handsome. There are too many women who chase him.
Yeah,
and which is something that doesn't happen yet to Sinner. And so for both Berrettini and Musetti, I fear the distractions that can come from off court. And while for Sinner, I trust him, working very hard and not being as much distracted as the other two could be.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I hear you. It makes sense, but still, I think that they will have very productive years. Both Sinner and Berrettini are going to do many good things over the course of this season. Okay,
listen. Thanks a lot to my old friend, colleague, Hall of Famer Steve Flink for these comments about the Australian Open men's tournament, and we will be back for the women's.